He threw out his pregnant wife for his lover. 30 minutes later, he is on a call begging. All his wealth, all his power, all his influence. And he couldn't save the woman he'd destroyed his marriage for. What happens when a man who has everything loses the only thing that mattered? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The front door slammed so hard it rattled the Christmas wreath, and Monica's 8-month pregnant belly pressed against the freezing Cleveland wind as she realized the man she'd built an empire with had just thrown her away like yesterday's business plan. Have you ever given everything to someone who threw it back in your face? Have you ever trusted someone with your whole heart, only to watch them choose someone else? Monica Harrison thought she knew pain until this December night proved her wrong. December wind cut through her thin nightgown like glass shards, each gust reminding her that Cleveland winters don't care about broken hearts or swollen bellies. The mansion's golden windows glowed warm behind her, a life she'd built now locked away by the man who once promised her forever. "You're nothing but a burden." Daniel's words still echoed in her ears, sharp as the ice forming on the steps. "She makes me feel alive again. You just drain me." Monica's hands shook as she pulled her robe tighter, feeling their unborn child kick against her ribs. Just 3 hours ago, she'd been setting up the nursery, hanging tiny clothes in the closet, dreaming about their growing family. Now she stood barefoot on frozen concrete, watching her breath form clouds that disappeared as quickly as her marriage. The neighbors' curtains twitched. Mrs. Patterson from next door peeked out, then quickly looked away. Monica knew what they saw. The pregnant black woman thrown out by her wealthy white husband. Another story for the gossip mill. Another woman who should have known better. But here's what they didn't see. Monica wasn't just any woman. She'd helped Daniel build his construction empire from nothing, working 18-hour days while pregnant with their first child, sacrificing her own dreams to make his vision reality. She knew every contract, every deal, every dirty secret that built their fortune. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister in Atlanta. Flight delayed. Be there by morning. Hold on, sis. Hold on? Monica almost laughed through her tears. Hold on to what? The man who'd been cheating for months with some 25-year-old socialite from Chicago? The marriage that crumbled the moment she became too pregnant to attend his business parties? She pressed her back against the front door she'd walked through as a bride 5 years ago. The same door where Daniel had carried her over the threshold, whispering promises about building a dynasty together. Now it stood between her and the warmth he'd decided she didn't deserve. What happens when a man who has everything loses the only thing that mattered? What does a millionaire do when his perfect plan falls apart? The irony burned worse than the cold. Daniel thought he was upgrading, trading his pregnant wife for a younger model who could still fit into cocktail dresses and laugh at his jokes without looking tired. He thought power meant having choices. But standing on that porch, Monica felt something shift inside her chest. Maybe being thrown away was the first step toward freedom. Drop a heartbreak emoji if you've ever felt thrown away by someone you trusted completely. Tell me, would you take him back after this? Because what happened next would change everything Monica thought she knew about love, loyalty, and the price of betrayal. 37 minutes later, Daniel's phone rang. The caller ID made his blood freeze. Cleveland Metro Hospital. His hand shook as he answered, and the words that came next would destroy every assumption he'd made about power, control, and what really mattered. The richest man in Cleveland discovered that all his millions couldn't buy him the one thing he needed most: consent from the woman he'd just destroyed. "Mr. Harrison?" The voice on the phone was professional but urgent. "This is Dr. Williams at Cleveland Metro. We have Jessica Morrison here. She's been in a severe car accident. She's listed you as her emergency contact." Daniel's world tilted. Jessica. His Jessica. The woman he'd chosen over his pregnant wife was fighting for her life while Monica sat freezing on their front porch. "How bad?" His voice came out strangled. "Sir, we need to operate immediately. There's internal bleeding, possible brain trauma. We need consent for emergency surgery, but..." The doctor paused. "Are you her husband?" Legal guardian? We need documentation of your relationship to proceed. Have you ever realized too late that you don't actually control what you thought you did? Daniel Harrison, who commanded respect in boardrooms across 3 states, who owned half of Cleveland's downtown district, suddenly felt as powerless as a child. He couldn't finish the sentence. Were they lovers? He'd promised to leave his wife, but legally, Jessica meant nothing. She was just the other woman, and other women don't get legal standing in hospitals. The hospital corridor stretched endless under harsh lights, each step echoing like a countdown. His Italian leather shoes, worth more than most people's rent, couldn't carry him fast enough to undo the last hour of his life. Nurses rushed past him, their scrubs whispering stories of life and death that his money couldn't rewrite. "Sir, are you there?" Dr. Williams pressed. "We're running out of time." "She doesn't have family here," Daniel managed. "I can pay for anything she needs, whatever it costs." "Mr. Harrison, this isn't about money. Without legal authority, we need her next of kin. According to her insurance, that would be—" Papers rustled. "Her sister in Portland, Oregon. We're trying to reach her now, but if we can't—" The unspoken hung between them. Jessica could die while they waited for permission to save her. Daniel's mind raced through his options. Marriage certificates, power of attorney, legal documents he'd never thought to create because he'd been too busy enjoying the thrill of the affair to consider its consequences. He'd built an empire on contracts and legal frameworks, but he'd conducted his heart like a reckless teenager. Through the emergency room doors, he caught a glimpse of Jessica on a gurney, oxygen mask covering her face, the same face that had smiled at him over candlelit dinners while his pregnant wife waited at home. Blood matted her blonde hair, the hair he'd run his fingers through just hours before she'd stormed out of his office, angry about his hesitation to file divorce papers. "We might lose her," the doctor said quietly. "I'm sorry, but my hands are tied." This was Daniel's reality. All his wealth, all his power, all his influence, and he couldn't save the woman he destroyed his marriage for. The woman he claimed to love enough to abandon his pregnant wife. The irony tasted like metal in his mouth. His phone displayed Monica's contact. His thumb hovered over her name, the same name he'd been planning to remove from his will, from his business documents, from his life. The woman carrying his child, sitting in the cold because he decided she wasn't worth keeping warm. What would you do if the person who could save your lover was the same person you just betrayed? How do you beg forgiveness from someone you've thrown away? As he dialed Monica's number, his thumb hovering over the call button, Daniel faced a truth that made him physically sick. The woman fighting for her life upstairs meant nothing compared to the one he'd left crying in the cold. But would Monica even answer? She almost didn't answer the phone. The same man who called her worthless 30 minutes ago was now begging through tears, and Monica held his entire world in her pregnant hands. Monica sat in her sister's rental car, heater blasting but still shivering, watching Daniel's name flash on her phone screen like a neon sign asking, forgiveness or revenge? Her finger hovered over the decline button. After what he'd said, after throwing her out like garbage, why should she give him even 30 seconds? But something in the third ring made her answer. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the child kicking in her belly, reminding her that Daniel was still the father. Maybe it was just the habit of 5 years of marriage. "Monica!" His voice was broken, raw in a way she'd never heard. Not even when his father died. Not even during their worst fights. "Monica, I need help." "You need help?" She couldn't keep the ice out of her voice. "That's rich, coming from the man who just told me I was a burden." "What happened, Daniel? Your girlfriend to finally see who you really are? Would you help the person who just broke your heart save someone else? What would it take for you to say yes?" "She's dying." The words came out like a confession. "Jessica, there was an accident. Car crash. She's at Cleveland Metro, and they need consent for surgery, and I can't. I don't have the legal right because we're not." He didn't finish, but Monica understood. The other woman was just that, other. Not a wife, not family, just a side piece who was about to become a tragedy because Daniel had never bothered to make their relationship legal. "Please, Monica, I know I don't deserve it. I know I'm a piece of shit. But she's dying and I can't lose her too. The word too hung between them, heavy with implications. Too, as if he'd already lost Monica. As if throwing her out in December cold was the same as death. Monica's free hand moved to her belly, feeling their daughter move beneath her skin. This child would grow up knowing her father chose another woman over a mother. Would she grow up knowing he let that woman die rather than swallow his pride? What exactly are you asking me to do, Daniel? Come to the hospital, sign the consent forms as family. They'll accept you as next of kin since we're still married. Please, I'll do anything, anything. The word echoed in the car's warm interior. Would he have done anything to save their marriage? Would he have done anything to keep her from crying on their front porch? Let me understand this, Monica said slowly. You throw me out of our house, call me a burden, choose her over me and our unborn child, and now you want me to save her life? Yes. His voice cracked completely. Yes, I'm asking you to be better than me. I'm asking you to save her because it's the right thing to do. Not for me. For her. She doesn't deserve to die because I'm a selfish bastard. Monica closed her eyes, feeling their unborn child kick against her ribs, a reminder of what connected them beyond his betrayal. The baby seemed to respond to stress, to the sound of her father's voice, even through the phone. Even broken and begging, Daniel was still her father. Have you ever held someone's life in your hands when they'd already crushed your heart? Have you ever had to choose between revenge and mercy when both felt justified? If I do this, Monica said finally, if I come to that hospital and sign those papers, it's not for you. It's not even for her. It's because the woman I am, the woman you married, doesn't let people die out of spite. Thank you. He was crying now. She could hear it. Thank you, Monica. I'll never forget this. No, she said quietly, you won't. Because after I sign those papers, after I save your lover's life, we're done. I want you out of the house when I get back. I want divorce papers filed by Friday. And I want full custody of our daughter. When she opened her mouth to speak again, even she didn't know what words would come out. But they emerged with crystal clarity. I'll meet you at the hospital, Daniel. But I'm not coming to save your relationship. I'm coming to end ours. Monica walked into that hospital not to save Daniel's lover, but to discover a truth that would redefine everything she thought she knew about her marriage. The automatic doors of Cleveland Metro Hospital whooshed open, releasing the smell of disinfectant and desperation into the December night. Monica's heels clicked against polished floors as she followed signs to the ICU, each step carrying her toward a moment she never imagined. Signing papers to save the life of the woman who destroyed her marriage. Daniel waited by the elevators, and Monica barely recognized him. His $1,000 suit was wrinkled, his perfectly styled hair disheveled, his face pale as the hospital walls. This wasn't the confident construction mogul who'd thrown her out 2 hours ago. This was a broken man who'd just learned the difference between power and control. Monica, he stood when he saw her, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. You came. I said I would. She kept her voice neutral, professional. The same tone she'd used in business meetings back when they were partners instead of strangers. What do I need to sign? Dr. Williams appeared with a clipboard thick with medical forms. Mrs. Harrison, thank you for coming. Time is critical. The patient has internal bleeding, and we need to operate immediately. Have you ever been face-to-face with someone who hurt you when they were completely helpless? How did it feel? Monica scanned the consent forms, her business training kicking in automatically. She'd spent years reading contracts, spotting problems in fine print, protecting Daniel's interests. Now she was protecting his lover's life while planning to destroy their marriage. What are her chances? Monica asked the doctor. With surgery, good. Without it, he shrugged. Maybe an hour, maybe less. An hour. Jessica Morrison had 1 hour left if Monica walked away. 1 hour to pay for breaking up a marriage, for stealing a husband, for disrupting a family. It would be poetic justice, the other woman dying while the wife watched. But Monica had never been cruel. Hurt, angry, betrayed, yes, but never cruel. She signed her name with steady hands, each letter a choice between vengeance and mercy. The forms made her Jessica's temporary guardian, responsible for medical decisions about a woman she'd never met but hated completely. "Thank you," Daniel whispered. "Thank you for being—" "Don't." Monica cut him off. "Don't thank me. Don't make this about us. This is about her right to live, nothing more." As they wheeled Jessica towards surgery, Monica caught a glimpse of her rival through the operating room doors. Young, blonde, beautiful, even unconscious. Everything Monica wasn't anymore. Everything Daniel apparently wanted instead of his pregnant wife. But something nagged at Monica as they sat in the surgical waiting room. Something about the timeline, about Jessica's emergency contact information, about the way Daniel's hands shook when he talked about losing her. "How long?" Monica asked quietly. "How long what? How long had you been sleeping with her?" Daniel's face cycled through emotions: shame, defiance, resignation. 8 months. 8 months. Monica's pregnancy was 8 months along. Daniel had been cheating since the day they'd conceived their daughter. The ICU hummed with machines, keeping life suspended by wires and will. Through the glass partition, she saw her, the woman who'd stolen her husband, looking nothing like the confident threat she'd imagined. Tubes and monitors made Jessica Morrison look fragile, human, almost innocent. "She didn't know about the baby," Daniel said suddenly. "I never told her you were pregnant." Monica's head snapped toward him. "What?" "I told her we were already separated, that the divorce was just paperwork. She thought you'd already moved on." Another lie in a web of deceptions. Jessica Morrison hadn't knowingly destroyed a marriage or stolen a father from his unborn child. She'd been lied to as much as Monica had. Share your experience if you've ever discovered the whole story wasn't what you thought it was. As Monica signed the consent forms, a nurse approached with unexpected news. "Mrs. Harrison?" The patient regained consciousness briefly and asked for you specifically. "She said she has something important to tell you about your husband." The other woman's first conscious words weren't "I'm sorry." They were "He never stopped talking about you." And suddenly Monica's world tilted on its axis. Jessica Morrison looked smaller in the hospital bed than Monica had imagined. Tubes snaked from her arms, monitors beeped steadily, and her blonde hair was matted with blood and bandages. But her blue eyes were alert, focused with an intensity that made Monica step closer despite herself. "You're her," Jessica whispered, her voice hoarse from the breathing tube. "You're Monica. You show me pictures, but you're more beautiful than I expected." Monica blinked, caught off guard. This wasn't how she'd imagined meeting her husband's lover. No screaming, no accusations, no dramatic confrontation. Just two women in a sterile room, connected by one man's lies. "Why did you ask for me?" Monica kept her voice steady, professional. "What could you possibly have to say?" Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "I need you to know, I never meant for this to happen. He told me you were separated. He said the divorce was almost final, that you'd both moved on. Have you ever fought for someone who was still in love with someone else? How did you know?" Another lie. Monica felt the familiar burn of betrayal, but this time it was different. Daniel hadn't just cheated. He'd created an elaborate fantasy for Jessica, making her believe she was dating a soon-to-be divorced man instead of destroying an active marriage. "He used to say your name in his sleep," Jessica continued, each word clearly painful. "Every night. Monica, Monica, Monica. I thought if I could just make him forget you. But he never did. Not once." Monica's hand instinctively moved to her belly, feeling their daughter kick. Even while sleeping with another woman, Daniel had been dreaming about his wife. "Then why?" Monica asked. "If he was saying my name, if he couldn't forget me, why were you with him?" "Because he said you'd already forgotten him." Jessica's voice broke. "He said you'd grown cold, that you only stayed for the money and security. He made me feel like I was saving him from a loveless marriage." Machines beeped steadily as words fell between them like bombs disguised as confessions, each revelation reshaping the narrative Monica had written in her mind. Daniel hadn't just been cheating. He'd been playing both women, making each believe she was saving him from the other. "The baby," Jessica whispered suddenly. "He said there was no baby. When I saw the pregnancy announcement in the society pages, I confronted him. That's why we fought tonight. That's why I was driving angry. Monica's world stopped. What pregnancy announcement? In the Cleveland Herald. 3 days ago. Construction mogul and wife expecting second child. That's when I knew he'd been lying about everything. About the separation, about you not loving him, about there being no future for your family. Monica hadn't seen any announcement. Daniel had submitted it without telling her, probably trying to maintain appearances while he figured out how to manage his double life. I was going to end it, Jessica said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Tonight, I was going to tell him I couldn't be with someone who lied about having a pregnant wife. That's why we fought. That's why I drove off angry and now I'm here. The pieces of Monica's shattered world began reshaping themselves into a different picture. Jessica wasn't the villain Monica had imagined. She was another victim of Daniel's deception, another woman manipulated by his charm and lies. Drop your story below if you've ever discovered someone you trusted was playing multiple people against each other. There's more, Jessica whispered, her voice growing weaker. About the business. About why he really wanted you gone. The FBI, they came to my apartment last week asking about Daniel's construction contracts in Chicago. They asked about you specifically. Monica's blood turned to ice. The FBI? They know Monica. About the missing money, about the fake contracts, about everything. And Daniel, he thinks you know too much. The baby, the divorce, the affair, none of it was about love. It was about getting you away from the business before the investigation goes public. The woman's final words before losing consciousness again hit Monica like lightning. The baby, he thinks it isn't his. But I know the truth about that night you were out of town. I know what he did. Monica's hand instinctively moved to her belly as pieces of a puzzle she didn't know existed began falling into place. What night? What truth? And why would Daniel think the child growing inside her wasn't his? As Jessica's eyes fluttered closed and the monitors resumed their steady rhythm, Monica realized she'd entered the hospital to save a stranger's life. But she was leaving with information that might destroy her own. Standing in a hospital hallway, 8 months pregnant, Monica realized the child growing inside her might be the key to a deception that went deeper than adultery. It was about identity, legacy, and lies. Monica's hand shook as she gripped the bathroom sink, Jessica's words echoing in her mind like a broken record. He thinks it isn't his. The fluorescent lights above made her reflection look ghostly, her face pale against the stark hospital walls. What night was Jessica talking about? Monica's mind raced through the timeline, trying to remember when she'd been out of town during the conception window. Then it hit her like a freight train, the Atlanta conference. She'd been gone for 4 days in March, speaking at a women's business summit, while Daniel stayed home with their son. But that was impossible. The math didn't work. Their daughter was conceived in early April, weeks after Atlanta. Monica knew because she'd been tracking everything, desperate to give their son a sibling before she turned 35. Unless, Monica pulled out her phone and scrolled through her calendar, her heart pounding harder with each swipe. March 15th through 18th, Atlanta conference. March 22nd, positive pregnancy test. If she conceived in Atlanta, the timing would be perfect. But she hadn't been with anyone else. She'd barely left her hotel room, except for speaking engagements. The hotel room. The night she'd felt dizzy after the networking dinner. The morning she'd woken up with gaps in her memory and her dress on backward. No, Monica whispered to her reflection. That's not possible. But pieces of a puzzle she'd never wanted to solve began clicking together. The conference organizer who'd insisted on walking her back to her room. The drink that had tasted strange. The morning she'd blamed on exhaustion and too much wine. Monica's stomach lurched, and this time it wasn't pregnancy nausea. She fumbled for her phone, searching through old emails until she found it, the conference attendee list. There he was, listed as a keynote speaker. Dr. Marcus Webb, construction innovation expert. The same Marcus Webb whose construction company had been bidding against Daniels for the Chicago contracts. The same Marcus Webb who'd mysteriously withdrawn his bid just weeks after the conference. The same Marcus Webb who'd suddenly become Daniel's business partner instead of his competitor. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll find more than you bargained for. Some secrets are worth keeping buried. A friend. Monica's blood turned to ice. Someone was watching her. Someone knew what she was thinking, what she was remembering. But who could possibly know about Atlanta except the baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if sensing her panic. Monica placed both hands on her belly, feeling the life moving inside her. Life that might not belong to the man she'd married. Life that might be the product of something too horrible to name. Her phone rang, making her jump. Daniel's name flashed on the screen, but this time she didn't hesitate. She answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" His voice was tight, controlled. "You've been gone for over an hour. People are asking questions." "What people?" Monica kept her voice steady, but her free hand gripped the sink harder. "Hospital staff. The detective who was here asking about Jessica's accident." "Monica, I need you to come back to the waiting room. We need to present a united front." United front. The same words he'd used when the Chicago contracts first came under scrutiny. The same words he'd used when the IRS had questions about their tax returns. Always about appearances, never about truth. "I'll be right there," Monica lied smoothly. "Just needed some air." But as she hung up, Monica made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going back to that waiting room. She wasn't going to play the loyal wife anymore. Instead, she was going to find out exactly what happened in Atlanta, even if it destroyed her. The hospital bathroom mirror reflected a woman she barely recognized. Swollen belly, tired eyes, but something new burning beneath the surface. The absolute refusal to be anyone's victim ever again. Monica walked out of that bathroom, knowing she might be carrying the child of the man who'd drug her, the man her husband had made a deal with, the man who'd helped Daniel build his empire on her violation. But she also walked out knowing that truth, no matter how ugly, was better than living another day in Daniel's web of lies. The detective's first words made Monica's blood run cold. "Your husband didn't just betray you personally. He betrayed investors, and you're the only witness who can save him or destroy him." Detective Martinez looked nothing like what Monica expected from a federal agent. Mid-40s, tired eyes, coffee stains on his shirt. He could have been any overworked dad grabbing a late-night snack. But the folder he placed on the cafe table between them contained enough evidence to topple an empire. "Mrs. Harrison, I'm going to be direct because we don't have much time. Your husband's construction company is under federal investigation for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. We believe he's been using his business to wash money for some very dangerous people." Monica's hand instinctively moved to her belly. "What does this have to do with me?" "Everything." Martinez opened the folder, revealing photographs of construction sites, financial documents, and surveillance photos of Daniel meeting with men Monica didn't recognize. "Your signature is on half these contracts. Your name is on the bank accounts. Legally, you're as involved as he is." The hospital cafe buzzed with midnight shift workers and worried families. But their corner table felt like an interrogation room where Monica's future was being negotiated without her consent. "I never signed anything fraudulent," Monica said carefully. "Daniel handled the business side. I only signed what he told me to sign." "We know." Martinez pulled out another set of photos. "We also know you attended the Atlanta conference in March. We know you met with Marcus Webb. And we know that within 2 weeks of that meeting, Webb's company merged with your husband's in a deal that should have been impossible." Monica's chest tightened. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what we know. Webb's company was our target. We've been investigating him for 2 years. Then suddenly, he partners with your husband and all their dirty business gets mixed together in one convenient package." The detective leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Mrs. Harrison, we have recordings of your husband discussing you with these men, discussing what you know, what you might remember, and what they need to do about it." "Which is what?" Martinez hesitated, then slid a small recording device across the table. "I think you should hear this for yourself." Monica's finger hovered over the play button. Once she pressed it, there would be no going back to the woman who'd stood on her front porch just hours ago, believing her biggest problem was adultery. The recording crackled to life, and Daniel's voice filled the space between them. "She's getting too close. The conference, the questions about Atlanta. She's starting to remember things. Another voice, older, gravelly. I told you this would be a problem. Should have handled it differently from the beginning. We can still handle it, Daniel replied. She's 8 months pregnant. Pregnancy complications happen all the time. Natural causes. Monica's hand flew to her mouth, but she couldn't stop the gasp that escaped. Daniel was discussing her murder like a quarterly budget review. The recording continued. The baby complicates things. If it's not yours, it's not. Daniel's voice was cold, certain. I made sure of that. Webb did his job at the conference. The kid gives us leverage if we need it, or an excuse if we don't. The device clicked off, leaving Monica staring at Martinez in the sudden silence. Her world had just collapsed for the second time in one night, but this time it wasn't about love or marriage. This was about survival. My husband planned this, she whispered. All of it. The conference, meeting Webb, getting me pregnant with another man's child. It was all part of some business deal. We believe so. The question is, what do you want to do about it? Monica looked around the cafe at the normal people living normal lives, people who went to bed worried about mortgage payments and parent-teacher conferences instead of murder plots and federal investigations. What are my options? Cooperate with our investigation. Help us build a case against both Daniel and Webb. In exchange, we offer you witness protection and immunity from prosecution. And if I don't, Martinez's expression darkened. Then you become another casualty of your husband's business practices. Mrs. Harrison, these men don't leave loose ends. Monica closed her eyes, feeling the baby move inside her. A child conceived in violence, carried in deception, now growing in the middle of a federal conspiracy. When she opened her eyes, her voice was steady. What do you need me to do? Monica pressed play on the recording device and heard her husband's voice discussing her murder like a business transaction. Cold, calculated, and devastatingly real. The FBI field office at 2 a.m. looked like every police procedural Monica had ever watched, except the coffee was worse and the stakes were her actual life. Agent Martinez had driven her here straight from the hospital, explaining that her house was probably under surveillance and nowhere Daniel knew about was safe. Before you listen to more recordings, Mrs. Harrison, I need you to understand something, Martinez said, settling across from her in the sterile interview room. What you're about to hear will be difficult. These conversations span several months. Your husband has been planning this for a long time. Monica nodded, but her hands were shaking as she reached for the headphones. The room felt too small, too bright, too real for what she was about to learn. The first recording started with Daniel's voice, but he sounded different, relaxed, almost jovial. The Atlanta thing worked perfectly. She doesn't remember anything, and now we've got our insurance policy growing inside her. Webb's gravelly laugh made Monica's skin crawl. Your wife's got a strong constitution. Took more sedative than usual to keep her under. But the timing worked out. She'll never suspect the kid isn't yours. Monica ripped off the headphones while rising in her throat. She'd been drugged, assaulted, impregnated as part of a business deal while unconscious in an Atlanta hotel room. Mrs. Harrison? Martinez's voice seemed to come from far away. Do you need a break? No. Monica's voice was barely a whisper, but it was steel. Keep playing them. I need to hear it all. The recordings painted a picture of conspiracy that went back years. Daniel and Webb had been partners long before Monica met either of them. The rivalry, the competing bids, the dramatic merger, all of it had been theater designed to hide their real business, laundering money for a Chicago crime family. Monica's role had been simple. The respectable wife who signed documents without reading them, attended conferences to make connections, provided legitimacy to their operations. But when the FBI started closing in, she'd become a liability instead of an asset. She knows too much about the Chicago contracts. Daniel's recorded voice explained to someone Monica didn't recognize. If she talks to investigators, she could connect dots we don't want connected. So eliminate her, came the cold response. It's not that simple. She's well known in the community. Her death would draw attention. But pregnancy complications. Daniel's voice trailed off meaningfully. And the kid, if it's Webb's, we can use it for leverage. If not, it dies with her. Either way, problem solved. Monica was carrying the child of a man who'd assaulted her while unconscious, planted in her womb by a husband who saw her murder as a business solution. The baby kicked against her ribs as if responding to the horror of its own origin story. But the recordings revealed something else, something that made Monica straighten in her chair despite everything she'd just learned. Daniel was scared. Beneath all the cold planning and casual discussion of murder, she could hear it in his voice. Fear. The FBI investigation was closer than he'd let on. His partners were pressuring him. The Chicago family was demanding results. Daniel Harrison, the man who'd built an empire on lies, was running out of time and options. "There's more," Martinez said, ejecting the current recording and inserting another. "This one was made yesterday, just hours before he threw you out of the house." Daniel's voice filled the room again, but this time he was arguing with someone. "I can't just kill her tonight. She's 8 months pregnant. The timing has to be right, has to look natural. You've been saying that for weeks." Webb's voice snapped back. "Meanwhile, she's asking questions about Atlanta, getting suspicious. How long before she remembers something useful? She won't remember. The drugs you use cause permanent memory gaps." "Not always. And even if she doesn't remember the hotel room, she might remember seeing documents, hearing conversations." "Daniel, your wife is smart. Too smart. Either you handle this, or we will." The recording ended with a dial tone that somehow sounded more ominous than any threat. Martinez removed the headphones from Monica's head gently. "Mrs. Harrison, what you just heard is enough to put your husband away for life. But we need your help to get Webb and the others." Monica stared at the recording device, thinking about all the nights she'd fallen asleep next to a man who was planning her death. All the morning kisses from lips that had discussed her murder over coffee. "What do you need me to do?" "We need you to go back. Act normal. Let Daniel think he still controls the situation while we gather evidence on his partners." "You want me to go home to a man who's planning to kill me?" "We'll have agents watching the house. Listening devices in every room. The moment you're in real danger, we'll intervene." Monica laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Agent Martinez, I've been in real danger for 8 months. I just didn't know it." She stood up, her pregnant belly making the movement awkward, but her voice was clear and strong. "I'll do it, but not to save myself. I'll do it to make sure every single one of these men pays for what they've done." As she prepared to walk back into the lion's den, Monica realized something that Daniel had never understood. A woman carrying life inside her will do absolutely anything to protect it. Even if that life was conceived in violence, it deserved a chance to grow up in a world where men like Daniel Harrison were behind bars. She walked back into that hospital room knowing it might be the last conversation she'd ever have with the father of her child, because now she knew he'd planned it that way. Dawn was breaking over Cleveland as Monica returned to the hospital, the FBI's recording device hidden in her purse like a loaded weapon. Agent Martinez's voice echoed in her earpiece, so small it was invisible. "Remember, keep him talking. Get him to admit what we heard on those recordings." Daniel sat slumped in the waiting room chair, his expensive suit wrinkled, his perfect hair disheveled. For a moment, Monica almost felt sorry for him, until she remembered his voice discussing her murder like a stock transaction. "There you are." He stood when he saw her, relief flooding his face. "Monica, I was worried. Where have you been?" "Thinking." She kept her voice neutral, but her heart hammered against her ribs. "About us. About everything that's happened tonight." Daniel moved toward her, but she stepped back into him. "Are you okay? You look pale." "I'm fine. Just tired." Monica glanced toward Jessica's room, where machines still beeped steadily. "How is she?" "Stable. The surgery went well." Daniel's voice softened, and for a moment he sounded like the man she'd married. "Monica, about earlier, what I said at the house. I was angry, confused. I never meant." "Never meant what? To call me a burden? To throw your pregnant wife out in the cold?" Monica sat down heavily, her belly making standing difficult. "Or never meant to get caught?" Daniel's face shifted, the mask slipping slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know you, Daniel. I know how your mind works. This whole thing, Jessica, the affair, throwing me out. It's all too convenient. Too perfectly timed. In her earpiece, Martinez's voice whispered, "Good. Push him. Make him defensive." Daniel sat down across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "Monica, you're not making sense. I screwed up, okay? I fell in love with someone else. It happens. But there's no conspiracy here. Doesn't it seem strange to you that your lover had a car accident the same night you decided to end our marriage?" Monica kept her voice conversational, but she watched Daniel's face carefully, almost like someone wanted her out of the picture. "What are you suggesting?" But there was something different in Daniel's voice now. Wariness, calculation. "I'm suggesting that maybe Jessica found out something she wasn't supposed to know. Maybe she threatened to tell me about more than just the affair." Daniel's hands clenched into fists on his knees. "Monica, you're 8 months pregnant and you've had a traumatic night. You're not thinking clearly. Actually, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months." Monica pulled out her phone, pretending to check messages. "I've been wondering about Atlanta, about that conference in March. You remember, the one where I came home feeling sick? Where I lost almost a whole day and couldn't remember why." The color drained from Daniel's face. "What about it? I met someone there. Marcus Webb. Funny thing, his company used to compete with ours, but now you're partners." "How did that happen, Daniel?" For a long moment, the only sound in the waiting room was the distant beeping of hospital machines. Daniel stared at Monica as if seeing her for the first time, and she realized he was calculating, figuring out how much she knew, how much she suspected, how dangerous she'd become. "Monica!" His voice was very quiet now, very careful. "Some things are better left alone." "Are they?" "Like the missing money from the Chicago contracts? Like the new business partners who don't seem to exist on paper? Like the federal investigation that's been going on for months?" Daniel went completely still. When he spoke again, his voice was cold, empty of all the warmth she'd once loved. "What do you know about any federal investigation?" Monica's heart pounded so hard she was sure he could hear it, but she kept her voice steady. "I know enough. I know about Webb. I know about Atlanta. And I know that Jessica threatened to expose everything before her accident. Jessica doesn't know anything." But Daniel's denial came too quickly, too sharp. "Doesn't she? Then why did she ask to see me specifically? Why did she want to tell me something important about my husband?" Daniel stood abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked the hospital parking lot. When he turned back, Monica barely recognized him. This wasn't the charming businessman she'd married, or even the cold husband who'd thrown her out. This was someone else entirely, someone dangerous. "You always were too smart for your own good," he said quietly. "I told them that from the beginning, but they said you were manageable, said your loyalty would keep you quiet even if you figured things out." Monica's blood turned to ice. It doesn't matter now." Daniel walked back toward her, and Monica instinctively placed both hands over her belly. "What matters is that you stop asking questions before you get answers you can't handle." "Is that a threat?" "It's advice. From someone who loves you." Monica almost laughed. "Love? You call this love? Planning my death because I've become inconvenient." Daniel's face went white. "Who told you that?" The question confirmed everything the FBI recordings had revealed. Monica felt a surge of triumph and terror in equal measure. "Nobody had to tell me, Daniel. I figured it out myself. The timing of everything, the way you've been distancing yourself, the sudden urgency to get me out of the house. You're not just cheating, you're planning to kill me." For a moment that lasted forever, Daniel stared at her across the hospital waiting room. Then his face changed completely, all pretense dropping away like a discarded mask. "You know what your problem is, Monica? You never knew when to stop digging." Within 2 hours, Monica went from wealthy wife to federal witness, trading her mansion for a safe house and her marriage bed for survival. But she wasn't running anymore. She was hunting. The safe house looked nothing like the witness protection locations Monica had seen in movies. No remote cabin in the woods or anonymous apartment downtown. Instead, it was a suburban home in Akron, complete with a nursery that the FBI had hastily assembled when they learned about her pregnancy. "This is temporary," Agent Martinez explained as he showed her through the modest three-bedroom house. Just until we can build our case and make arrests. A few weeks, maybe a month at most. Monica sank into the living room couch, exhaustion finally catching up with her. The confrontation with Daniel had ended with her walking away, but not before she'd gotten what the FBI needed, his recorded admission that people were planning to kill her. "He knows I know," she said quietly. "When I walked out of that hospital, I saw it in his eyes. He's going to disappear, isn't he? We have agents watching him. If he tries to run, we'll know." But Monica wasn't convinced. She'd been married to Daniel for 5 years, had built a business with him, had watched him maneuver through complex deals and difficult negotiations. He was many things, but he wasn't stupid. Her phone rang, Daniel's number. Martinez nodded, signaling her to answer while he activated the recording equipment. "Monica, where are you?" Daniel's voice was different now. No more pretense, no more charm. Just cold efficiency. "We need to talk. I think we said everything we need to say to each other." "Have we?" "Because I just had an interesting conversation with some associates of mine. They seem to think you've been talking to people you shouldn't be talking to." The threat was clear, but Monica felt something she hadn't expected. Power. For the first time in months, maybe years, she held cards Daniel didn't know about. "I don't know what you mean. Don't play games with me, Monica. You're in way over your head here. These aren't business rivals or divorce lawyers. These are people who solve problems permanently. Like they solved Jessica's problem?" Daniel's silence stretched long enough for Monica to wonder if he'd hung up. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. Jessica's accident was exactly that, an accident. But accidents can happen to anyone, even pregnant women. The line went dead. Martinez pulled off his headphones, shaking his head. He just threatened a federal witness. "We got enough to arrest him right now." "No." Monica's voice was stronger than she felt. "If you arrest Daniel now, his partners will disappear. Webb, the Chicago connections, all of it. You said yourself you need them all. Mrs. Harrison, your safety is our priority." Monica struggled to stand, her pregnant belly making every movement awkward. She walked to the window and looked out at the quiet suburban street. Normal houses with normal families living normal lives. "Agent Martinez, let me ask you something. How many women do you think Webb has assaulted? How many wives has Daniel manipulated? How many families have these men destroyed? We don't have complete numbers, but based on our investigation, more than just me." Monica turned back to face him. "This isn't just about my safety anymore. If we don't stop all of them, they'll just find new wives to manipulate, new women to assault, new families to destroy." Martinez studied her face carefully. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we make Daniel think he's winning. Let him believe I'm scared, hiding, helpless. Meanwhile, I give you everything I know about the business, the contracts, the financial records. I help you build a case that puts all of them away forever." "That's extremely dangerous. If Daniel suspects you're cooperating, then we make sure he doesn't suspect." Monica placed both hands on her belly, feeling the baby move restlessly inside her. This child deserves to grow up in a world where men like Daniel Harrison are behind bars. I'm going to make sure that happens. Over the next week, Monica became someone she'd never been before. A strategist in her own right, not just Daniel's business partner, but his opponent. She pored over financial records with FBI accountants, identified shell companies with federal investigators, and provided details about Daniel's operations that even surprised Martinez. "You knew about all this?" he asked during one late-night session, pointing to evidence of money laundering that went back 3 years. "I signed the documents. I attended the meetings. I just didn't understand what I was looking at." Monica highlighted another suspicious transaction. "Daniel always said I was good with numbers, but bad with the big picture. Turns out I was better at seeing the big picture than he thought." The safe house phone rang at 3 a.m. on their 7th night there. Monica answered it without thinking, still half asleep. "Mrs. Harrison?" The voice was unfamiliar, gravelly, the same voice from the FBI recordings. "Webb." Monica sat up instantly, gesturing frantically to Martinez, who slept on the couch nearby. "I think you have the wrong number." "No, I don't. I know exactly who you are and where you are. Did you really think the FBI could hide you from us?" Martinez was awake now, frantically activating recording equipment and signaling to other agents. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you do. Just like you know what happened in Atlanta. Just like you know whose baby you're carrying. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Monica's hand moved instinctively to her belly. Leave me alone. I'm afraid that's not possible. You see, Mrs. Harrison, you've created quite a problem for us. But every problem has a solution. The line went dead, leaving Monica staring at the phone in the sudden silence. Martinez was already on his radio, calling for backup, preparing to move her to a new location. But Monica wasn't listening. She was thinking about Webb's words, about the casual confidence in his voice, about the way he'd found her despite federal protection. Agent Martinez, she said quietly, I don't think we're hunting them anymore. I think they're hunting us. The phone call that changed everything came at 3 a.m., shattering Monica's sleep in the safe house like glass breaking in slow motion. Because sometimes the truth arrives when you're least prepared to handle it. Agent Martinez stood in the doorway, his face grave in the harsh hallway light. Mrs. Harrison, we need to talk. Jessica Morrison died an hour ago from complications. Monica struggled to sit up, her pregnant belly making every movement feel like lifting weights. Death should have brought some kind of closure, but something in Martinez's voice suggested this was just the beginning. There's more, he continued, settling into the chair beside her bed. The autopsy revealed something we weren't expecting. Jessica was 3 months pregnant. The words hit Monica like ice water. 3 months. That meant Jessica had conceived right around the time Monica discovered her own pregnancy. 2 women, both carrying children, both caught in Daniel's web. But that's not the worst part. Martinez pulled out a thick file folder. We found this in Jessica's apartment, a journal she'd been keeping. Mrs. Harrison, your husband's pattern goes back 15 years. You weren't his first wife. Monica's blood turned cold. What do you mean? Sarah Michelle Harrison married Daniel in 2005. Died in a car accident in 2008 when she was 7 months pregnant. The case was closed as accidental, but after tonight, Martinez opened the journal, showing pages of Jessica's handwriting. She documented everything. Daniel told her about Sarah, about how convenient that accident had been. The safe house walls seemed to close in around Monica. She wasn't just fighting for her own life. She was uncovering a graveyard of women who trusted Daniel with their hearts, their bodies, their futures. How many others? Monica whispered. We're still investigating, but Jessica mentions at least 3 other women over the years. All of them ended up pregnant. All of them ended up dead or disappeared when they became inconvenient. Monica placed both hands on her belly, feeling her daughter move restlessly inside. This child was growing in the shadow of serial murder, connected by blood to a man who collected pregnant wives like trophies. Martinez continued reading from the journal. Daniel told me about the insurance money from Sarah's death. $2 million that helped him start the construction company. He said she was getting too suspicious about his business dealings, asking too many questions. Insurance money, Monica repeated numbly. He used his wife's death to build his empire. It gets worse. According to Jessica's notes, Daniel has a specific type, intelligent businesswomen who can help legitimize his operations. He marries them, gets them pregnant to create emotional bonds and legal complications, then eliminates them when they become liabilities. The pattern was clear now, brutal in its efficiency. Daniel wasn't just a cheating husband or even a white-collar criminal. He was a predator who used pregnancy as a weapon, love as a trap, marriage as a hunting ground. Jessica figured it out, Martinez explained. That's why she was going to leave him. That's why she was driving angry that night. She realized she was following the same path as Sarah and all the others. Monica's mind raced through her own timeline. The business partnership that had seemed so romantic. The quick marriage that had felt like destiny. The pregnancy that had made her feel secure. Every milestone of her relationship had been calculated, orchestrated, designed to make her vulnerable. There's more, Martinez said quietly. We reopened Sarah's case. The car accident wasn't random. Someone tampered with the brakes. And the night she died, She called a divorce lawyer. Like I was planning to do, Monica whispered. Exactly like you were planning to do. The baby kicked hard against Monica's ribs, as if sensing the danger that surrounded her existence. This child was supposed to be Daniel's fourth victim, another insurance payout, another stepping stone in his climb to power. But something had gone wrong with his plan this time. Jessica had figured out the pattern. The FBI had been watching. Monica had been stronger than he'd anticipated. Agent Martinez, Monica said, her voice steadier than she felt. I want to see that journal. Every page. Every detail. If Daniel thinks he can turn me into another Sarah Harrison, he's about to learn the difference between his previous wives and a woman who knows she's being hunted. Martinez handed her the journal, its pages thick with secrets and warnings from beyond the grave. As Monica opened to the first entry, she realized Jessica's final gift wasn't just information. It was the roadmap to Daniel's destruction. Because if you're going to hunt monsters, you need to understand how they think, how they move, how they kill. And Monica was about to become the most dangerous thing Daniel had ever encountered. A victim who refused to die quietly. 9 months pregnant and preparing to testify against a serial killer who happened to be her husband. Monica discovered that some battles are worth fighting even when you might not survive them. The federal courthouse in downtown Cleveland looked like a fortress, complete with metal detectors, armed guards, and enough security to make Monica feel both protected and terrified. Agent Martinez had explained the stakes. This wasn't just about her anymore, but about stopping a pattern of murder that stretched back over a decade. The grand jury indicted him on 12 counts. Prosecutor Janet Williams explained as they sat in the witness preparation room. 3 counts of murder, 4 counts of attempted murder, money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy. Your testimony is the key to connecting all the pieces. Monica shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her swollen belly making every position awkward. The baby was due any day, and the stress of the approaching trial had her body on edge, contractions coming and going like warning shots. What about Daniel's defense strategy? Monica asked, though she suspected she already knew. Williams pulled out a thick folder. They're claiming you're an unstable, pregnant woman seeking revenge against a faithful husband. They're going to argue that you made up the abuse allegations, that you're working with the FBI out of spite, and that your pregnancy has made you emotionally unreliable. It was exactly what Monica had expected. Daniel would use her pregnancy against her, twist her vulnerability into a weapon for his own defense. The same condition that made her a target would now be used to discredit her testimony. There's something else, Williams continued hesitantly. Daniel's lawyers have filed a motion requesting he be present for the birth of his child. They're claiming paternal rights and arguing that custody arrangements need to be established. Monica's hands instinctively moved to her belly. They want him in the delivery room while I'm testifying against him for murder. The judge will decide tomorrow. But Mrs. Harrison, you need to be prepared for the possibility that your most vulnerable moment might also be your most dangerous. The irony wasn't lost on Monica. She'd spent months hiding from Daniel, protected by federal agents and safe house protocols. Now, she might have to give birth while he watched from across a courtroom, legally powerless to stop him from witnessing the arrival of the child he'd planned to orphan. I want to see the evidence again, Monica said firmly. Every document, every recording, every piece of Jessica's journal. If I'm going to face Daniel in court, I need to know his pattern better than he knows it himself. Over the next 6 hours, Monica immersed herself in the documentation of Daniel's crimes. Financial records showing insurance payouts from dead wives. Hospital records revealing suspicious accidents. Business contracts signed by women who died within months of their signatures. The most chilling discovery was Daniel's methodical approach. Each wife had followed the same trajectory: romance, marriage, pregnancy, growing suspicion, then elimination. He'd refined his technique over the years, learning from each murder, improving his methods. Sarah had been strangled and staged as a car accident. Melissa, wife number 2, had suffered a mysterious fall down the stairs. Patricia had died from food poisoning that looked like natural causes. Each death had been carefully crafted to avoid suspicion while maximizing insurance benefits. Monica studied crime scene photos, autopsy reports, and witness statements, building a mental map of Daniel's hunting grounds. She noticed patterns the investigators had missed, how Daniel always moved his pregnant wives to new cities where they had no support systems, how he systematically isolated them from friends and family, how he created financial dependence that made leaving seem impossible. But Monica had one advantage his previous victims hadn't possessed. She knew she was being hunted. Mrs. Harrison? Agent Martinez appeared in the doorway. The judge made his decision. Daniel will not be present during the birth, but he will have the right to video testimony if you go into labor during trial proceedings. A small victory, but Monica felt a wave of relief. She wouldn't have to endure labor while Daniel watched from across a courtroom. Her daughter would enter the world without her father's predatory gaze as the first thing she experienced. When do I testify? Monica asked. Opening statements are Monday. You'll take the stand Tuesday morning. Mrs. Harrison, are you ready for this? Monica looked down at her hands, which had signed documents that helped build Daniel's empire, had worn the rings of his previous victims, had unknowingly aided his crimes for years. Now those same hands would hold a microphone and speak truth that could put him away forever. Agent Martinez, I've been ready since the night he threw me out in the cold. I just didn't know what I was getting ready for. As she prepared to leave the courthouse, Monica caught a glimpse of Daniel being led to a transport van in handcuffs. For just a moment, their eyes met through the bulletproof glass. His expression held no remorse, no recognition of the lives he'd destroyed, only calculation, still planning, still strategizing, still believing he could manipulate his way out of consequences. But Monica saw something else in his face that gave her strength, fear. For the first time since she'd known him, Daniel Harrison was afraid. And he should be, because tomorrow she would tell the world exactly what kind of monster he really was. She went into labor in a courthouse bathroom, but Monica refused to let Daniel's child be born in fear. This baby would enter the world during an act of courage, not cowardice. The contractions started at 6 a.m., just as Monica was reviewing her testimony notes one final time. Sharp pain that doubled her over, followed by the unmistakable feeling that her daughter had decided this was the day she would make her entrance into the world. Agent Martinez, Monica called through gritted teeth as another contraction hit. I think we have a problem. The hospital was a 15-minute drive from the courthouse, but Monica's labor was progressing faster than anyone expected. By the time they reached Cleveland Metro, she was dilated to 7 centimeters, and the baby was coming whether the justice system was ready or not. Mrs. Harrison, Dr. Peterson explained as they wheeled her into the delivery room, your testimony is scheduled to begin in 3 hours. We could try to delay labor, or we can set up video equipment so you can testify from here. Monica gripped the bed rails as another contraction peaked. Set up the cameras. Daniel has delayed justice long enough. He's not delaying it one more day because of his daughter's birth. The delivery room became a fortress of technology and determination. FBI technicians set up secure video links while nurses prepared for birth. Monica would literally be fighting for 2 lives, her own and her daughter's, while simultaneously fighting to put their killer behind bars. Mrs. Harrison, you're at 9 centimeters, the nurse announced. This baby is coming fast. Across town, the courthouse filled with reporters, federal agents, and spectators who'd come to witness the trial of Cleveland's most notorious serial killer. Judge Crawford had agreed to the unusual arrangement of live testimony from the delivery room, understanding that justice couldn't wait for convenient timing. Your Honor, Prosecutor Williams addressed the court via video link. The witness is prepared to provide testimony while in active labor. Mrs. Harrison has specifically requested to proceed despite her medical condition. On the courtroom's large screen, Monica appeared propped up in her hospital bed, for lines in her arms, monitors beeping steadily in the background. She looked directly into the camera, her voice clear despite the pain etched on her face. I do solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Daniel sat at the defense table, his expensive suit unable to hide the handcuffs at his wrists. For the first time since Monica had known him, he looked small, powerless, stripped of the charm and authority that had once defined him. "Mrs. Harrison," Williams began, "can you tell the court about your marriage to the defendant?" Monica's testimony began between contractions, each answer punctuated by labor pains that seemed to emphasize the intensity of her words. She described the whirlwind romance, the business partnership, the gradual realization that she wasn't Daniel's first wife or his first victim. "He showed me pictures of Sarah once," Monica testified, pausing as a contraction peaked. "Said she'd been beautiful but weak. Said she couldn't handle the pressure of being married to a successful man. I thought he was talking about emotional weakness. Now I know he meant she was too weak to survive his murder attempts." The courtroom was silent except for the sound of medical equipment transmitted through the video link. Even hardened reporters seemed transfixed by the surreal scene of a woman giving birth while exposing her husband's crimes. "Mrs. Harrison, did the defendant ever discuss harming you?" "He didn't discuss it with me," Monica replied, her breath coming in short gasps as another contraction built. "But I heard the recordings. Him planning my death like a business merger, discussing whether to make it look like pregnancy complications or another accident." As Monica's testimony continued, her labor progressed relentlessly. The nurse whispered that she was fully dilated, that the baby was crowning, that it was time to push. But Monica refused to stop talking. "Your Honor," she addressed the judge directly, "I need to finish this testimony before my daughter is born. She deserves to enter a world where her father is already behind bars." What happened next became courtroom legend. Monica continued answering questions while actively delivering her child, her voice never wavering even as she pushed through the final stages of labor. She detailed Daniel's financial crimes, his manipulation tactics, his systematic elimination of pregnant wives, all while bringing new life into the world. "Mrs. Harrison," Williams asked for her final question, "what would you say to other women who might be in situations similar to yours?" Monica looked directly into the camera as the baby's head emerged. "I would tell them that survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about making sure predators like Daniel Harrison never get the chance to hunt again." At 2:47 p.m., as Monica finished her testimony, her daughter was born, healthy, beautiful, and entering a world where justice was finally being served. The delivery room erupted in cheers from medical staff who'd witnessed something unprecedented in their careers. On the courthouse screen, viewers watched Monica hold her newborn daughter for the first time, tears streaming down her face as the baby cried with the powerful lungs of a survivor. "Your Honor," Prosecutor Williams announced, "the witness has completed her testimony." But before Judge Crawford could respond, Agent Martinez burst into the courtroom with news that would shake the case one final time. "Your Honor, we have an emergency. The defendant has escaped federal custody during transport back to jail. Daniel Harrison is missing, and we believe he's heading for the hospital." With her 3-day-old daughter in her arms and Daniel's footsteps echoing in the hospital corridor, Monica faced the ultimate choice: hide and hope or stand and fight. The hospital's lockdown alarm pierced the air like a scream, red emergency lights bathing the maternity ward in an ominous glow. Monica clutched her newborn daughter closer, feeling the baby's rapid heartbeat against her chest. A tiny rhythm that matched her own terror. "Mrs. Harrison," Agent Martinez's voice crackled through his radio as he positioned himself at the door. "Federal marshals are sweeping every floor. We believe Daniel entered through the emergency department during a shift change." How had he escaped? Monica didn't care about the details. All that mattered was the sound she'd just heard. Familiar footsteps in the hallway outside, the same purposeful stride that had once made her feel protected, but now promised nothing but danger. "He knows this hospital," Monica whispered to Martinez. "Jessica was treated here. He spent days walking these halls, learning the layout, figuring out security weaknesses." The baby stirred in her arms, making soft sounds that seemed impossibly loud in the tense silence. Monica looked down at her daughter's face. So perfect, so innocent, so unaware that her existence had been planned as part of a murder scheme. "Mrs. Harrison." Daniel's voice came from just outside the door, calm and controlled as if he were arriving for a business meeting. "I know you're in there. I think it's time we had a conversation about our daughter." Martinez drew his weapon, but Monica shook her head. She knew Daniel too well. He was too smart to walk into an armed confrontation without a plan. He had something up his sleeve, some advantage he believed would protect him. "You can come in," Monica called out, surprising Martinez with her steady voice. But slowly, and with your hands visible. The door opened, and Daniel entered looking nothing like the man who'd thrown her out in the cold 3 days ago. Prison clothes had replaced his expensive suits. Handcuffs had been replaced by rope burns on his wrists from whatever he'd used to escape, but his eyes held the same calculated coldness she remembered. "Hello, Monica." He looked at the baby in her arms, his expression unreadable. "She's beautiful. She has your eyes." "Don't." Monica's voice cut like ice. "Don't you dare pretend to feel anything for her. I know what you had planned for both of us." Daniel stepped closer, and Monica noticed something that made her blood freeze. He was wearing a maintenance worker's uniform, complete with a hospital badge. He hadn't broken in. He'd walked in disguised as staff. "You know what I love about hospitals?" Daniel said conversationally. "So many ways for accidents to happen. Medication mix-ups, equipment failures, postpartum complications. New mothers are so vulnerable." Martinez kept his weapon trained on Daniel, but Monica could see the calculation in her husband's movements. He was positioning himself between Martinez and the baby, using his own child as a human shield. "The trial's over, Daniel," Monica said. "The jury heard everything. Your pattern, your previous victims, your business crimes. Even if you kill me now, you're never going to be free." "Maybe not," Daniel replied with a smile that chilled Monica's soul. "But I can make sure you never see freedom either. And our daughter, well, she won't grow up to testify against her father." The baby began to cry, as if sensing the evil in her father's presence. The sound seemed to snap something inside Daniel, his calm facade cracking to reveal the monster underneath. "Give her to me," he demanded, reaching toward Monica. "She's my child too. I have rights." "You have no rights." Monica held her daughter tighter. "You're a convicted murderer who planned to kill us both." "The jury hasn't returned a verdict yet." Daniel's voice turned sharp. "And dead witnesses can't maintain their testimony." Monica realized this was the moment everything had been building toward. Not the trial, not the FBI investigation, not even the birth of her daughter. This moment, in a hospital room at 3 a.m., where she would either save her child or watch them both become Daniel's final victims. But as Daniel lunged forward, Monica did something that surprised everyone, including herself. Instead of backing away, she stepped toward him, using her knowledge of his psychology against him. "You want to know the truth about our daughter, Daniel?" Monica's voice was steady, powerful. "She's not yours." Daniel froze. "What?" "The paternity test I had done while in FBI protection. She's not your child. All of this, your entire plan to eliminate us, was based on a lie. You can kill me, but you'll be murdering an innocent child who shares no DNA with you." It was a bluff, and Monica prayed Daniel couldn't see through it. She had no idea who her daughter's biological father was, but she knew Daniel's obsession with legacy, with genetic connection, with controlling what belonged to him. "You're lying," but uncertainty crept into Daniel's voice. "Am I?" "Think about it, Daniel. The timing, the way you were never there during conception, the way she doesn't look anything like you. Face it. You failed. Your perfect plan, your systematic approach, your genetic legacy. All of it ruined because you couldn't even manage to father the child you planned to kill." Daniel's face cycled through confusion, rage, and something Monica had never seen before: doubt. In that moment of hesitation, Martinez moved. The takedown was swift and brutal. Daniel hit the floor hard, his head striking the linoleum with a sound that Monica would remember for the rest of her life. As federal agents poured into the room, securing the scene and checking for injuries, Monica looked down at her daughter and whispered the first truth she'd been able to speak in months. "You're safe now." Daddy's never going to hurt anyone ever again. But even as they led Daniel away in restraints, his words echoed in the hospital room. This isn't over, Monica. I'll always be part of your life now. Always. Monica's response silenced every federal agent in the corridor. No, Daniel. You were just a sperm donor. Her father will be someone who protects her, not someone who tries to destroy her. 5 years later, Monica stood in her new construction company's headquarters, teaching her daughter to build things that last. The ultimate revenge against a man who destroyed everything he touched. The Atlanta skyline sparkled beyond Monica's office windows, each light representing dreams that couldn't be extinguished by one man's evil, hopes that had survived even the darkest Cleveland winter. Her construction company, Phoenix Rising Development, had grown from nothing to one of the Southeast's most respected firms in just 4 years. Mommy, look. 5-year-old Sarah held up her latest creation with the building blocks scattered across the office carpet. It's a house that can't fall down. Monica smiled, watching her daughter's careful placement of each piece. Sarah had inherited more than just Monica's dark eyes. She'd gotten her mother's determination to create rather than destroy, to build rather than tear down. That's perfect, sweetheart. Monica knelt beside her daughter, marveling at the complex structure. What makes it so strong? The foundation, Sarah said seriously, pointing to the wide base of blocks. Uncle Marcus showed me that everything starts with a good foundation, and then you can build anything you want on top of it. Marcus Webb, the name that had once represented Monica's worst nightmare, now belonged to the man who'd helped her rebuild her life from ashes. The truth about that night in Atlanta had emerged during Daniel's trial. Marcus had been drugged too, manipulated into Daniel's scheme without his knowledge. When he'd learned the truth, he'd become Monica's strongest ally in bringing down the conspiracy. Their relationship had grown slowly, carefully, built on honesty rather than deception. Marcus had proven himself through actions, not words, helping Monica establish her business, providing emotional support during the darkest moments, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. Mrs. Harrison, her assistant, appeared in the doorway. The reporter from Business Weekly is here for your interview. Monica nodded, straightening her blazer. Today marked the 5th anniversary of Daniel's conviction, and media outlets were revisiting the case that had captivated the nation. The pregnant woman who testified while giving birth to convict her serial killer husband. Sarah, can you play quietly while Mommy talks to the reporter? Okay, but can I show her my building too? I want to tell her about foundations. The interview went smoothly, covering familiar territory about Monica's transformation from victim to entrepreneur, from Daniel's target to the architect of his downfall. But the reporter's final question caught her off guard. Mrs. Harrison, Daniel Harrison is up for parole consideration next year. How do you feel about the possibility of him being released? Monica looked out at the Atlanta skyline, then down at her daughter building impossible structures on the office floor. I feel sorry for him, she said finally. Sorry for him. Daniel spent his whole life destroying things, businesses, relationships, women, families. He thought power came from tearing down what other people built. But look around this office. Look at my daughter. Look at the women's shelter we funded last year, or the affordable housing projects we've completed. Daniel took lives, but his actions created something he never expected. They created a legacy of building, of helping, of making sure other women never have to face what I faced. The reporter scribbled notes, clearly expecting a different kind of answer. As for his parole, Monica continued, I'll be there to testify against it, just like I've done every year for the past 5 years. Not out of hatred, but because some people prove they can't be trusted with freedom. Daniel had chances to choose differently, to build instead of destroy. He chose destruction every time. After the reporter left, Monica sat on the floor with Sarah, helping her daughter add to the elaborate block city they'd been constructing for weeks. Each building was different. Houses, schools, hospitals, businesses, all connected by carefully planned roads and bridges. Mommy, Sarah said thoughtfully, Uncle Marcus says my daddy was a bad man who tried to hurt people. Monica's heart clenched. They'd agreed to be honest with Sarah about her origins, but in age-appropriate ways. The full truth would come later, when she was old enough to understand the complexities of survival and justice. That's right, sweetheart. But you know what's more important than where you came from? What? Where you're going. And you, my beautiful girl, are going to build amazing things. You're going to help people create beautiful buildings, maybe even change the world. Sarah considered this seriously, then added another block to her construction. Will you help me build things forever, Mommy? Forever and always, Monica promised, meaning every word. Later that evening, after Sarah was asleep and the office was quiet, Monica stood alone by the windows looking out at the city lights. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Dinner tomorrow? Sarah wants to show me her latest architectural masterpiece. Monica smiled, typing back. She's been working on it all day. Fair warning, she's planning a suspension bridge that might require engineering consultation. Lucky for her, she knows an engineer who specializes in impossible bridges. As Monica prepared to lock up the office and head home to the life she'd built from the wreckage of Daniel's destruction, she caught her reflection in the dark windows. The woman looking back at her bore little resemblance to the broken, pregnant victim who'd been thrown out into Cleveland's winter cold 5 years ago. This woman was a mother, a business owner, a survivor who'd transformed her pain into purpose. This woman had testified while giving birth, had stared down a killer, had built something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. Sarah's block city sat in the center of the office like a promise. A miniature world where buildings stayed standing, where foundations were strong, where little girls could grow up believing they could construct anything their hearts imagined. Monica turned off the lights and locked the door, leaving behind another day of building toward a future that Daniel's darkness could never touch. Tomorrow would bring new projects, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that destruction never has the final word. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't tearing down your enemy. It's building a life so beautiful, so strong, so full of love that their hatred becomes irrelevant. And Monica Harrison had built exactly that, a legacy that would outlast any man's attempt to destroy it. As she drove through Atlanta's glittering night toward home, where a 5-year-old architect waited to share her dreams of building castles that could never fall down, Monica knew with absolute certainty that she had won. Not just survived, but won.